Houston is a city of innovation. We do big things here, and that includes solving homelessness in our region. As a city, Houston has made strides towards this goal, but that doesn't mean the work is done. An organization that's been key to our progress is the nonprofit Coalition for the Homeless. As a capacity-building organization, the Coalition coordinates the partners and resources of Houston's regional homeless response system, known as The Way Home. From local governments to client-focused nonprofits, The Way Home brings together more than 100 partners that share a vision of making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. By creating efficiencies and managing logistics on a macro scale, the Coalition is like an air traffic control for our homeless response system. So what is homelessness, and what causes it? Definitions vary, but the federal government considers a person to be homeless if they are sleeping outside, in a place not meant for human habitation, or in an emergency shelter or transitional housing program. We often say that homelessness is the last stop, or the result of other failed systems. The Way Home cannot solve poverty. It catches the people who have exhausted every other safety net and have ended up on the streets. Generally speaking, people experience homelessness because they can't find housing that they can afford. This might sound intuitive, but we know there are a lot of other ideas out there about the causes of homelessness. Researchers have measured an array of factors against rates of homelessness, and the biggest correlation was the cost of housing. The data clearly shows that as rent prices go up, so does the rate of homelessness. In Houston specifically, a 2011 study found that more than half of the people experiencing homelessness in Harris and Fort Bend counties attributed their homelessness to an economic crisis. Other precipitating factors included domestic violence, incarceration, illness or disability, or substance abuse disorders. In recent years, a significant number of people have also attributed their homelessness to disasters like Hurricane Harvey or the COVID-19 pandemic. You may be thinking, what about substance abuse? What about mental illness? The following example may help you better understand how those challenges fit into the puzzle. Imagine a game of musical chairs. You have 10 players, but only 9 chairs. One of the players has a sprained ankle. When the music stops, who do you think is left without a chair? Probably the injured player. If someone were to ask why that player lost, you might say, because she had a sprained ankle. But the underlying cause was that there weren't enough chairs for all the players. Likewise, it's easy to look at issues like drug use or mental illness and say they're causing homelessness. But many of us have family or friends who have struggled with substance abuse or mental illness, and chances are they didn't fall into homelessness. The key difference was that they weren't living in poverty and experiencing housing instability. The lack of affordable housing is a crisis for many Houstonians. Here, nearly 45% of families are living below the federal poverty level, and there's simply not enough affordable housing for all of them. In fact, there are only 47 available affordable homes for every 100 very low-income households. That's a shortage of 173,000 affordable homes in the Houston region. And with inflation and the rising cost of housing, the affordability gap is only getting worse. Nationwide, nearly 582,000 people were homeless on a single night in 2022. As for how many people are experiencing homelessness in Houston, the number is always changing as people cycle in and out of homelessness every day. For this reason, the Coalition for the Homeless conducts an annual count to help us track trends. In January 2023, the Coalition counted 3,270 people experiencing homelessness on a single night. 62% were in emergency shelters or transitional housing, and 38% were staying in a place not meant for habitation. Nearly half said it was their first time experiencing homelessness. And the data shows the impacts of structural racism too. Although African Americans represent only 20% of Harris County's population, they make up 55% of the local population experiencing homelessness. Now that we understand what homelessness is and what causes it, let's talk about the way homes approach. It's helpful to start with how Houston's homeless response system used to work, or more accurately, not work. Back in 2011, we had the 6th largest homeless population in the country. Homeless service providers were spending millions, but not reducing homelessness. In fact, rates continued to go up. Everyone was operating in silos with no collaboration. This is what the system used to look like: messy, confusing, and with no easy way for people to find the path out of homelessness. In 2012, community partners joined forces as The Way Home to create a shared vision to solve homelessness. The coalition developed a streamlined, efficient process for getting people into housing called Coordinated Access. Community partners offer people experiencing homelessness a single assessment to understand their history and needs and match them to the right housing and/or income program. Everyone who is referred to a housing program goes onto a single centralized waiting list, and the most critical cases are prioritized. This means each provider is paired with clients that make the best use of their resources. Gaps and duplications of effort are eliminated, and everyone is working from a common strategic playbook based on data. Over the past 11 years, this approach has achieved incredible results. Houston has reduced overall homelessness by more than 60% since 2011. Chronic and family homelessness have decreased significantly, and in 2015, we effectively ended veteran homelessness. The partners of The Way Home have housed more than 28,000 people since 2012. That's more than the capacity of Dynamo Stadium, and 90% of those housed do not re-enter homelessness for at least 2 years. You can see how this improvement has set Houston apart from other major U.S. cities. The New York Times highlighted our progress in June 2022, and since then we have worked with leaders from New York, LA, Chicago, San Diego, Pittsburgh, Spokane, Delaware, and many other cities and states wanting to learn about the Houston model. The way homes work with the City of Houston and Harris County to decommission encampments through housing is also being held up as a national model by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So how has Houston accomplished this? First, every coalition partner agency is aligned on a single strategy: housing first. Why? Because trying to help someone get sober or hold on to a job is a lot more likely to be successful if they have a roof over their head than if they're living under a bridge. The priority is to get people into housing so that the interventions stick. Think of it as a 3-legged stool. To get someone out of homelessness and keep them housed, those people need to have a place to live, funding to pay the rent, and services to help them stay in their homes. The process is simple. It starts with outreach to people on the streets or staying at a shelter. Next, housing navigators help find them a home. From there, they can achieve stability and growth. But the support doesn't stop there. Once they're in housing, the partners of The Way Home work together to ensure that people get holistic support, including connection to employment opportunities, healthcare, and any other services or support they need. It's obvious this level of commitment requires a lot of resources. But many people don't realize it's actually more resource-intensive to allow people to remain homeless. The cost to taxpayers for a single person experiencing chronic homelessness is $30,000 to $50,000 per year, including the costs of ER visits, police response, and trash pickup. And this doesn't even include the economic impacts on local businesses. Compare that with the $18,000 it costs to provide a single person with housing and supportive services using the Way Home model. And it's clear that there is a legitimate economic case for addressing homelessness, in addition to the compassionate case. The Housing First strategy is not unique to Houston, but it's been remarkably effective here in combination with our coordinated resources. As an op-ed published in the LA Times put it, strategic clarity and execution lead to success. Still, it's hard to recognize Houston's progress when we continue to see people living on the streets. How can we understand this contradiction? First, not everyone we see on the streets is experiencing homelessness. A 2015 study showed that only half of people panhandling throughout the city of Houston were experiencing literal homelessness. Of the people who are in fact experiencing homelessness, many are simply waiting for their housing. The average waiting period from referral to move-in is around 100 days. The partners of The Way Home get people off the streets and into housing almost every day. To keep this important work going, we need your support. Please commit to showing Houston you care. Contribute, advocate, reach out, and educate. We're proud that Houston is a national leader in the effort to eliminate homelessness. And we're excited to continue working towards a Houston where everyone has a place to call home.